There is a new twist in the situation of Marcus Rashford and Manchester United, as there could be a club that saves him from the ongoing misery of struggling to find a club that will give him a happy place. France could be a likely destination for this player. Welcome to the Native Sport. Like, share, and subscribe now. Here is what's happening. First of all, guys, there is news that we do get from Whitewell that apparently Man United are also considering signing another player as they work on a deal, a possible deal for Patrick Dorgu from Lecce. In fact, we do know that Man United representatives are expected to go over there to Italy and hold a series of talks with Napoli over Garnacho, but also with Lecce over what it will take for them to get Patrick Dorgu. We know that Lecce do want about 35 million euros. Of course, it is believed that the agent of Dorgu was in Manchester yesterday to talk to the club, but we'll get the details of what exactly will happen. I don't think that deal will be too complicated for the clubs to pull off all the three parties, including the player. But the difficult one is that of Marcus Rashford. He's been linked with AC Milan. His agents and representatives spoke to AC Milan. They spoke to Barcelona. They spoke to Dortmund. I believe they spoke to Juventus and probably even Napoli. They spoke to many clubs, but there seems not to be one that has got the proper structure that will really trigger a move away from Old Trafford. Now, according to what we are getting, it was beginning to look as if it is becoming increasingly difficult for him to leave, as there was no suitor at all. And reports of Rashford eventually staying at Man United had started, making rounds. His PR team talking about how he has no issues with Ruben Amorim and he would be okay to play, his fit and available to play and stuff. But today, the Daily Mail is reporting that Monaco could offer him the exit. The Daily Mail is reporting that Monaco apparently are interested in Rashford, and they could offer him a loan move where they meet all most of his wages. Now, that is in France. Of course, we know that Monaco are a super rich club. They are mega rich, and I think £315,000 per week wouldn't be money unheard of for them. I think it's money they can easily afford to pay for a player if they want them. And if that is so, that would be, I think, a good option. I think the fans will be more happy about that. The thing, though, is will Rashford himself be happy to go and play in Monaco? Would Rashford himself be happy to go and play in France right now? Is that where he would want to go? Because Monaco are not really your giants in Europe, lately. They are not really a giant per se. If you've been linked with teams like Barcelona and Dortmund and AC Milan, I think Monaco will become, I think, sort of a downgrade. But you see, if they have the money and they feel Rashford is a player who can make them level up a bit and try to match PSG, who have been bossing the French league for forever, nearly. Maybe, if the player is convinced about the project and all, he would say, you know what, let me just go there in France and, just enjoy myself, because the French league is not really that competitive. I had Neymar talk about how he thinks the Saudi Pro League is a more competitive league than the French league. So for a player like Rashford, who in the hardest league in the world was scoring 30 goals a season, probably it could be even an easy one. But also a move away from Manchester to France is not. Of course, there is a change in weather because Monaco is largely hot and Manchester is largely cold. But I think in terms of distance and stuff, France and the UK are just they are neighbors. They are crossroads neighbors. I would call it that for lack of a better description. So, we do hope that it's a deal that can perhaps materialize. Another option, because again, we talk about these deals because now that's another option that is coming up, because options are what we are looking at this point. No, so that's where the Rashford situation is. There is not significant progress per se. It's not what you would want to hear at a point like this when you've got about 10 days to the end of the transfer window. For a player who many want to see out, you want to see more progress, but we seem to be hitting dead ends everywhere. So no significant progress being made just because of how hard it is for you or for any club to get this boy out of his long contract, and not just long, but also huge contract in terms of payment. So that's the situation. with Rashford. So let's see how serious Monaco could be. This is a story from the Daily Mail. I first saw it from the Daily Mail. Like I keep saying, at times Daily Mail have good stories. At times they don't have credible, so they just create and concoct stuff. But I think this is one that I think would make sense. We are waiting to see what will unfold going forward. But at the very worst, guys, and I want to put this to you, do you envision a scenario where Rashford stays at Man United and actually shines? Do you see that happening? Because, I mean, he has shown before that he can be a decent footballer. But at this point, as we are trying to rebuild, as Ruben Amorim is saying all the things about the squad and about how it could be the worst Man United team ever, do you envision a scenario where Rashford turns it around and stays, all things fail, and he stays and shines at Man United, perhaps even better than he ever was? Do you see that happening? Well, I don't know of so many stories in football where a player has fallen out with a club, and eventually they, they bury the hatchet and restore a truce, and he stays, and it turns out to be fancy and nice for them. This probably would be a first in football at this stage. I don't know. You can remind me of one if you know of any, but I don't know of many stories like that in football. So Rashford's situation is an interesting one. I mean, the way it's unfolding, you can't be certain where it's going to end. But clearly, anything can happen at this point. No, he can leave even tomorrow, but he can also fail to leave and stay, because I mean, where it's headed now looks unclear. So, but if he stayed, do you envision him shining at Man United, or are you going to are you looking at a frustrated player, a frustrated player rotting on the bench of Man United? What do you see? What do you think is bound to happen with Rashford? And where are we headed with this? So give me your take on that in the comment section, because this is now beginning to re-unfold, if I would call it that. I think it's a restart to a story that should be nearing its end. So we should say, if it's a book, it's a long book. It's a long story of Rashford, the long story of Rashford and his Man United departure. Long, hugely impending, for long impending, and it's beginning to lose um, the test. At some point it was a hot story. It's beginning to lose the test of it because it's dragging too long, guys. It's never good for anything to drag so long. But again, that's what you get if you tie players down to long, hefty contracts. You cannot undo them easily. It's a difficult thing to do. Perhaps harder. I think it's harder to let go of Rashford than it is for Man United to make a marquee signing. Don't you think? Even with the PSR issues, I think letting go of Rashford could be the biggest win for Man United in this transfer window, because it is looking increasingly difficult. That's where we are. Subscribe to the United of Sport. My name is Webb. I will be back later to tell you which player could be the next on the list, as Man United is trying to work on a deal for Patrick Dorgu. Cheers.